Liverpool Fan in Japan.
Hello, YouTube. Liverpool fan in Japan here, Miyazaki Man Si, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Leo from Leo's Goals. How are you doing, my man?
I'm good. It's so nice to be on the channel. I had reached out because I fell upon your channel and I just love the energy. I loved your energy and I was like, we gotta go on and have a chat.
Appreciated, absolutely. Now, this is a collaboration that many of my fans have been calling for, so thank you so much for spending the time with me.
No, of course, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, yes. So, obviously, we're sitting top of the table in the Champions League, in the Premier League on merit at the moment, but a few shaky results, right? Obviously, the defeat against Tottenham, the draw against Man United, the last minute draw against Newcastle. How is your confidence at the moment, and do you think we'll go on to win the league?
It's definitely too early to say, but I do think people overreacted after the
Mm,
Forest result. I felt like I was a bit worried about the United and Spurs, not so much the results, but more so the performances. It felt like
sure.
the energy and our intensity wasn't quite what we were used to before. But
Yeah,
I felt that second half against Forest, again, obviously not the result we would have wanted, but I more so look at the performance because
sure.
I think that's so important. And that second half, I thought we were back to our best. We really should have won it. We had so many chances. Sells was the man of the match, which
Yes,
says something. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So I'm really optimistic. I'm optimistic because if we stay on that performance level, I think we'll go on a winning run, especially looking at our fixtures coming up.
Absolutely. And on that trajectory as well. So I think people take for granted for the fact that Liverpool may drop points here or there, but you can't say safely that the other teams won't drop points as well. I mean, look at Arsenal's form this season. Look at their squad in comparison. Look at their injury list, even their tactics and the goal difference. Because people think that Arsenal's defense is impregnable. But when you look at the goals conceded chart, we're there or thereabouts in the pack. But when you look at goals, for, we're miles
Yeah,
ahead. So our
definitely.
offense is like leagues ahead of them. And when you look at their names, Havertz and Gabriel Jesus, bless him
Yep.
with the injury and all that, relying on Saka, who's also out injured, and
Yep.
Odegaard, who's coming back from injury, they
Yep.
don't, to me, have the firepower for sustained push, right?
Definitely. No, I completely agree. Like it really doesn't feel like previous title, moments in the past where I really feared you. I mean, you remember those seasons where it
Yeah,
literally felt like a 2 points drop somewhere for City was a
absolutely.
miracle, and it really doesn't feel that way this season. I mean, genuinely, I think it might be PTSD or something, but I still fear City more than I feel Forest and Arsenal. And I know that's
Yeah,
crazy looking at the league table. It doesn't make any mathematical sense, but I think that's just knowing that they're probably the only team that's capable of going on a 10
sure.
game win streak. And I just don't see that happening for Forest or Arsenal. So that's why I'm not too fearful, honestly, looking at those two teams that are closest to us right now?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's slightly like recency bias as well for the recent results and recent matches. But when you look at it as a whole, right, 6 points ahead, game in hand, higher goal difference as well. That legitimately, the higher goal difference in itself is like a point. So Arsenal have to outperform us from now until the end of the season. Three clear games they have to win, whereas we have to lose those games and draw another respective game. And then from then onwards as well, they have to maintain that performance and either maintain the status quo, perform better. It's a very, very hard ask, and we're both massively going deep in the Champions League or the cups as well. Obviously, Arsenal are
Yeah.
hanging on the balance in that Newcastle fixture. But we have the superior squad and personnel and talent. And how good is it as a Liverpool fan? You remember our benches of the past. Look at that current bench at the moment, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. No, and that's the thing. Like, that's why I try to go on Twitter as little as possible because obviously they're like we all want signings, we all want to reinforce, we all want to sign a defender. Like all of these, like you have to be deleted not to want that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I just feel like so many people overreacting. Where if we're not enjoying this moment in
Mm,
time, where like you said, we're in first place, things are looking good, and we're not enjoying these moments, and we're complaining all the
yeah.
time, then what's the point of being a Liverpool supporter? Like I can't remember times being this good. And I know like this maybe goes against the agenda of what a lot of what we see out there, but for me it's like sometimes people just got to take a step back, breathe,
Mm,
and just like enjoy the moment because it's a special time to be a Red, and I do think special things will come this season, and I trust Slot. We can talk about maybe some of the goals we've conceded recently.
sure.
I really do trust our boss and our backroom staff to figure out ways to sort those defensive issues because like you said, with our attacking firepower, I'm not too worried about us scoring goals. It's more how can we keep clean sheets again?
Absolutely, absolutely. And something you mentioned there is very, very relevant. For example, there's always going to be peaks and troughs. You're not going to
Yep.
stay on top forever. So you need to enjoy the good times because when the
Yep.
low times do come, you got to support the team, cheer them up, get them, really on their feet and bouncing again. And literally, when we talk about the transfer window, everyone loves a transfer, right? It's exciting.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
great. It's really fun. But then there's some things that people don't consider. So, for example, because our squad is so brimmed with talent, literally, if we sign anyone at this point, and especially when Joe Gomez is back, a legitimate first team player won't even make the match day squad. Someone will be bumped off that list because there's literally no space. And I know there's been lots of calls for a left back, right? People have been
Yep.
complaining about Robertson and performances. We have two first team left backs at the moment. It's a pretty specialist position. Robertson and Simicast don't play anywhere else. If we
Yep.
sign another left back, you're asking for three first
Mm.
team left backs in the squad, and it's almost untenable because even in training, when you match up 11 against 11, mimicking the game scenarios, what's going to happen to the third left back?
Yeah. No, no, I completely agree. And not to mention that, like, if we sign someone, they would kind of have to slot right in and perform. And I think you'd kind of have to look at a Premier League left back in order to do
Yes.
that because they need that experience of playing in the fast, the pace of the
Mm,
league. And if you sign a top left back in January, the tax you'd have to pay on that.
absolutely.
We've mentioned the names like Robinson, Kirkez, but
Mm,
you'd have to pay 50 million plus
I
if
know,
you want to
right?
sign them now. And I just don't see us like thinking that way where we pay this massive tax when, like you said, we already have two kind of first team left backs, and not to
Mm,
mention that when Joe Gomez comes back, I personally would like to see him play
that's
a
good.
left back
Yeah,
again because I thought last season he did really well there, and I would like to see Slot try it at least because he's really solid defensively. But yeah, like you said, it's just this is what kind of annoys me a bit, and that's why I try to go on Twitter as little as
yeah.
possible. It's just like people like complaining all the time, but then sometimes you just got to look at the reality of it instead of living in like a fantasy world. It's
Yeah,
like, what would it mean to genuinely sign a left back now who would perform right away, because that's what we need. It's
absolutely.
not like when we signed Robbo from Hull, for example, we gave him a 6-month period to
That's right.
adjust to the team.
Fabinho too. Yes.
Yeah, and that wouldn't make any sense. Like you said, we already have Robo and Costas. Why would we bring in a player now, pay that tax, and
Mm,
potentially not have them adjust right away? So it's just like, I think we need to be realistic, but at the same time, obviously,
mm.
you could see that there's a hole there. But I really do think Joe Gomez is one that needs a bigger shout within our fan base, because last season I thought he did really well there. And it means too that when we're in possession, we could potentially drop to three at the back
That's right.
with Trent moving further forward. So I think there's a lot of potential there.
Very, very much so, especially against the inverted winger who likes to cut in on their left foot from their right side, our left side as well. Joe Gomez, specifically for that job. I remember Alvaro Arbeloa doing the job on Messi, similar
Yeah.
and cutting aside, marking him out of the game. And I'm trying to build, at the moment, it's a little secret project, but I'm building a transfer database, a proper
Ooh.
analytical piece with algorithms in it to showcase, are they really value in January and will they really add something? Because the only reason, legit reason, or two legit reasons you would sign
Yeah.
someone in January is
Yeah.
one, that transfer target is no longer going to be available. We're thinking Luis Diaz to Tottenham, right? We had to get him
Yep.
now. It was never
Yep.
summer target.
Exactly.
Cody Gakpo, Man United were sniffing thereabouts. If we don't get him, he might disappear. So moving forward the plans, because they won't be available, or they're going to make a tangible impact to what you need to do to achieve your goals for that season. Now, we're on top of the league already. You've got to imagine if ever there was a strong bargaining position for Arne Slot to put the case, I need this player, he will help me in my aspirations to win the Premier League, then FSG are going to back him, to the hilt,
Yeah.
because like 80 million for a player that will get you a Premier League title, 80 million in the grand scheme of things guarantees you nothing. But if Slot is saying that player is going to help me this season and I'll get you that Premier League, then
Exactly.
they better back him here. And that's the only case I can envisage someone coming in. Either a long-term target is going to be off the market, or there's a player that Slot said, right, if we had that to the mix right now and I could utilize that person, I'm going to get you two titles this season.
I completely agree. That's spot on. Completely.
Yes, yes, and yeah, but you know what fans are like. Crazy transfer season when they see Marmoush to Manchester City and potentially Cambiasso left back as well, and Arsenal potentially getting Zubamendi in the summer. They're like, FSG out. Why aren't we doing anything? We're not moving. What is Richard Hughes doing? He hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah. And the thing too about, like, we can talk about FSG potentially because that's something that's getting mentioned around so much. And it's another one where I understand sometimes where it feels like we have our limitations with the
Mm,
ownership, but it's one of them again where it's like, what do you want? Because at the same time, there was recent news about Elon Musk potentially being interested in buying
Yeah.
the club, and I ran polls on Instagram with so
Mm.
many Liverpool fans voting, and that's an example where there aren't that many billionaires in the world that could potentially buy Liverpool because the club is worth around 6 billion reportedly. And when a name like Elon Musk got thrown around, so many Liverpool fans were outraged, and they're
Mm.
like, "We would never want Elon Musk. The things he stands for." And again, that's that's also political, so it makes it a bit more complicated of an issue. But it's
Yes.
I think it brings us to this question of like, it's so easy to be FSG out, but then who do you want?
Who
Who
do you
do
want?
you
Name
want to
someone.
replace?
Yeah.
Like that's what I always say. It's like, sure, you can complain all day, but give me a solution, and give me a real world solution, because it's just so easy to complain just for
Mm.
the sake of complaining. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You're completely spot on there. Like a lot of people don't appreciate like how a custodian actually needs to manage Liverpool. Like Elon Musk is too volatile in decision making and does things
Exactly.
just for the lols or the memes as well. I saw some Twitter banter, slightly digressing today, but on Asman Gold and taking away his Twitter mark and that kind of thing. But like even DIC back in the day, Dubai International Corporation or whatever the acronym stands for, they had like a 4-year plan to maximize the value of Liverpool before moving them on again for profit as a financial vehicle. So the fact that we haven't got someone that considers us an asset, but actually is part of their sporting portfolio, FSG are almost out of the picture now for the fact that they've brought in Michael Edwards as head of global football. So if anything, it's going to be Michael Edwards that signs off on transfer policies, budgets, and everything to do with Liverpool. FSG aren't, football specialists, but Michael Edwards is, and they've given him that role. So the hierarchy that I see is Richard Hughes with the transfer committee probably agree on the transfer targets based on a profile, the type of player that Arne Slot wants. They will propose players that are realistic that we can get, and Arne Slot will give the final say, I would like him in my squad, or I wouldn't like him. And then Richard
Yep.
Hughes would go on and do it. If it's very, very expensive, they'd probably elevate that to Michael Edwards to get the final go ahead green light before pursuing it. But I think the biggest difference between Slot and, let's say, a Klopp and Arteta is Klopp and Arteta could probably name drop a player and say, this player would be good for us. Whereas Arne Slot's more like a profile, a type of player. Can you look at the market? And that's where I kind of see the structure. Would you kind of agree with that?
Definitely. No, that's really well put. And like you mentioned with Edwards, like his role is CEO of football. So
Mm.
it seems like the plan for FSG is to widen that portfolio and buy, like there were reports that they wanted to buy other clubs, like multi-club ownership. And so Edwards would be at the helm of
Yep.
all of that. But obviously as of right now, his sole focus really is Liverpool in terms of current operation. And yeah, like that's the thing too. It's like we complain, like we want what City have, for example, right, with
Mm.
what they spend. But what if their charges are found guilty, and
Yeah.
their entire like recent history is wiped away because it was found that they're found guilty, let's say, of 50 of those charges, whatever the number is. Then is that the ownership we would have wanted? Like, and it's like, then
Yeah.
okay, let's look at the other clubs in the Premier League. Do we want what Chelsea have right now? Yeah, they've spent 1 billion, but are they in a much better place than us? I'm not so sure. So it's like, again, I always try to look at the reality of what's around you. And
Yes.
yes, like I would love for us to spend more, but at the same time, it's like we're not playing career mode on FIFA, and it's not like we could just sign anyone that we want. And often I also think that honestly who the fans want isn't always the best, and I'm actually just made it I was preparing a video this morning, but it's like in the past I remember fans were going crazy for Mario Götze, they were going crazy for Fekir, and we ended up going with more low-key signings like Sadio Mane from Southampton. And
Yes.
did
Yes.
it work out? I think it worked out pretty well, you know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
he's
Exactly.
so sometimes I just like to let the people who are specialists do their
Mm.
job. And even though right now the one thing though where I will say it's really not okay is the contract situations. That's the only thing where I'm just like, I don't
Yeah.
understand how it's dragged on this long, because needed to be sorted
It's
faster,
it's it's
you
very
know.
interesting dynamic. Just before I go into contracts, so it's very
Yeah.
interesting that you mentioned identifying those diamonds in the rough that really suit Liverpool, right? So you're thinking like Timo Werner when we linked him, but we ended up with Diogo Jota, for example, and that kind of player. Getting the better player. So this engine that I'm creating is trying to uncover the players that will make a tangible impact and a better value for money, more Liverpool style players. Because if Todd Bowley was in charge, no one wants to end up with a Mikhailo Mudryk at that price point, right? And these kind of players that you just can't shift on, and we never go with that kind of model anyway. Liverpool have a more kind of stringent process on recruiting, but you can't say that we haven't spent money or that our recruitment isn't good, right? Even in the last window, we bought a brand spanking new midfield, and then everyone would love a McAllister in their squad, a Soboslai in their squad. Endo's come in, done a fantastic job as well, and Gravenberg has lit things up. So we have the right people in the right places to make the right decisions. But then just going back onto the kind of point of your Gertzers and overruling like Jurgen Klopp, who wanted the Gertzer,
Yeah.
and there's another player, Julian Brandt as
Oh
well,
yeah.
and
Yep.
Julian Draxler as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If the fan, I was making a video on this, funny you say it as well. If the fans got who they wanted, right, then there is no Soboslai and it is no McAllister. We end up with Manu Kone, Kefran Turam, and then a whole mishmash of various players that don't necessarily look, particularly to me, like Liverpool players, and would get us in this first position at the moment.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and that's like that's also why the type of work that they do in Ibu Konate. That's an example I
Mm.
think it's good to talk about because I read quite extensively because I'm half French, so when he
Yeah,
joined, I was so hyped because I mean I'm sure you feel the same way about Endo,
agreed.
but it just feels extra special when a player is also from your nation. But I remember reading a lot about kind of how we scouted him, and apparently one of the things we did is we spoke to the our recruitment team spoke to every single coach he's ever had,
Yeah.
and apparently one of the deciding factors why they decided to go for him, even though he checked a lot of the boxes,
Mm.
is like his mentality from his main coach from like when he was young, a teenager at
Yeah.
Sochaux in France. And they said he was one of those players where every single day after training he would go to the coach, and even if he was the best player at that age group, he would go to the coach and he would say, what can I improve? And he
Mm.
had that mentality where he was just always thinking about how to level up. And it's things like this where, again, as fans, obviously we also don't have the resources that our teams do, and it's their full-time job. But that's where I'm kind of like, trust it, because it goes on a much deeper level than just, oh my god, Götze scored the winning goal at extra time in 2014 against
Yeah.
Argentina, he's gonna be the next I don't know, like a legend. But it's sometimes it's a lot more complex than that.
Agreed. And actually, no, I'll give you some hidden insight into this transfer algorithm system, actually, because covering
Yeah,
a
that
lot of
sounds
that as
cool.
well,
Yeah.
in regards to like the intangible information that people don't have access to. So
Yeah.
especially when people watch the games, they can see on the ball movement, tackles, goals, all that kind of thing. But as you mentioned very, very correctly, like Mo Salah, for example, was willing to travel over an hour and a half to get to training sessions when he's under 10 years old, and to show that kind of desire and ambition to be
Yeah.
the best you can be reflects in his professionalism, in his fitness, in his work ethic as well. You've got some players who are just ridiculously talented, but just don't put in the hard work and training, and they've only got such a limit. You're thinking Eden Hazard, for example, right? Notoriously bad in training, but on the pitch can light up any given day. To me, that's not really the Liverpool player. I can't envisage in the last few years where we spent big money on a player who on any given day can do it, but doesn't have the right work ethic. You look behind the scenes, these are Liverpool lads. They get on so well. They speak
Yeah.
well. They represent Liverpool well.
Yeah.
All of the Christmas charities and other stuff. They look really, really close. Really genuinely nice people, like Cody Gakpo, for example. Lucho Diaz is a young kid at heart. Darwin Núñez is hilarious, for example. I
Yeah.
think Liverpool has an extra metric in order to quantify you and qualify you as a Liverpool player. It's not just because you're good at football. You want to be a proper good person with
Yeah.
football in your blood, in your veins, and just want to do your best and improve. And even if you're benched, for example, you don't kick up a fuss and start complaining to the press and media or through your agents, because we've got rid of those players. We've got rid of those bad eggs, right? Would you agree that we have a good bunch of lads?
Definitely. I mean, in that video that I prepped this morning, I literally highlight Endo as well, your boy
Yeah.
Endo, because he's such a great example.
Mm,
Because I remember when we ended up signing him, I'll be honest, I had never watched him before
sure.
except a few Japan games, but I wasn't specifically looking at him.
Yeah.
And when the news came out that we had lost out on Caicedo and
Oh yes.
Lavia, and we end up with this like older player from Stuttgart who's not
Yeah.
that tall, everybody was like going crazy. They're like, how is
Mm,
this the guy that we ended up going for? And I remember the first interview of Jurgen, because I actually rewatched it the other
sure.
day. He was like, trust him. Like
Mm,
there's all this talk about the fact that Lavia and Caicedo rejected us and all this, but trust me. he will come good for us. And
Yes,
look now, like he's loved within the Liverpool fan base. And
absolutely.
you look at, for example, Lavia, who would cost 2 to 3 times the amount.
Yeah,
Look at how injury prone he's been. And not to say that obviously you can't envision that happening, but it just shows that like Endo was someone that a lot of people doubted when he came in. And now the amount of people I hear saying they want him to get more playing time, they trust him every time he's on the pitch for us. And I think that's a perfect example because he was like he's the type of player that had no PR, you know what I mean?
sure.
And you know, one of the things that I think he proves people wrong that I love too is he's so good aerially and yet he's so short. And it's
He's
one of
like a
them things
sponge.
where
Yeah.
if you just saw him on a pitch with like 10 other midfielders, you'd be like him in the Premier League, like he'd get completely out,
Mm.
out battled. And yet, like my favorite part, one of my favorite things about Endo is like him going for a header against a much taller player and he
Oh,
wins
a
it,
giant. Yeah.
like
And he's
so.
he's consistent, he's reliable. He is pretty much the professional Asian version of Milner. He comes in, does a job whenever called upon. I said, right, I did a massive preview video on my original channel, the Miyazaki Man, on Wataru Endo to Liverpool, everything you wanna. In fact, that's my highest viewed video to date at the moment. I think it got 88,000
Makes
views or
sense.
something like that.
Wow.
And I put it on Reddit as well. And I was saying, right, you trust this guy. This guy will be an absolute warrior, will do the job on the pitch, but off the pitch, he shines as well. He'll lead by example in training every
Mm.
day. He'll bring the kids through the cup match. He'll communicate. He'll wear the gum shield. He'll go into the places that other people don't dare to go into. And he's like an inspiration that you follow. When you see him crunching into a tackle, the fans will jump and they absolutely cheer for him. The players will feel, come on, we got to do our part as well. And you saw it
Yeah.
in the cup as well, right? Till the last minute, he was pressing, hustling, fighting. Him and Van Dijk, the experienced players on the pitch, leading by example. Obviously, Simicast to Van Dijk, header
Yeah.
in, treasured moment as well. But that kind of player is worth their weight in gold. And when you had so many players at the start of the season saying, so many fans even saying, Endo, we got to sell him. He's not a slot player. He's not a slot player. How do they know he's not a slot player? Slot utilizes him. He subs him on. He talks and infuses, praise on Endo as well.
Yeah.
He's got a specific role within the squad, which he's doing admirably. And this squad is top of the table at the moment. So I think even players like Darwin Núñez, right? Everyone loves to hate Marmite kind of player Darwin Núñez. But you can't deny the fact that his existence on the pitch, we win a lot of games. He starts a lot of games. Klopp has started him. Slot has started him. And even if his on-the-ball contribution's a bit iffy, his existence on the pitch is a team game, forces the opposition to do certain things, track certain things, think and position themselves a certain way, which in fact gives Salah more space in the half space, which allows the other players to progress into the 10 position. So no matter who plays, we've just got to support them. They're all Liverpool lads and we're all going for the same thing.
Completely. No, that's it's so well put. And even like Darwin, he just seems to get so much hate right now,
Mm,
which is tough to see. But I also understand the frustrations
yeah,
because I don't know if you saw, like there was a clip from Robbie Fowler which has gone kind of viral, which where he
yeah,
where he talks about
mm,
Darwin. And I think what can be said for sure about him, for example, is you can't really trust him in front of goal in terms of
yes,
having the crucial moment. So maybe it's about readjusting him within our system where the major chances, especially in key games, like imagine that game against Forest, if that last chance fell to him, we
yeah,
even though there's a part of us that's like, let's back him, maybe it's about like you're talking about, our system. How can we ensure that he's more of a setting up the players than being there for the crucial moments? Because definitely Cody Gakpo and Salah seem better fit for that. So I think it's for him, for example, it's about adjusting your expectations. And maybe it's the
yeah.
same with Endo, where like you said, he might not be the starter, and Gravenberg clearly has been shining that much, but he can still play a role, and therefore you got to support him because you know he will help the team now in the end of the season.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And there's three things about Darwin Nunes that I think people underestimate as well. I think it's to do with the price tag and the
Yeah.
expectation, right? Having seen him for Benfica, having seen him score against us. First and foremost, if you look where he is in the pecking order at the moment, he can't be any higher than third. You're almost looking at Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota being our starting number 9. So
Yep.
removing the price tag to have this quality of player as your third line striker, with what he's capable of, and not forgetting that last season as well, he actually scored the last minute winner against Nottingham Forest with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
McAllister chip to the back post. He is probably the best third choice striker in world football. And when we looked at Chelsea and Manchester City squads of the past, how envious we were of having legitimate quality on the bench that could come on with different options. We finally have that now, and people are wanting to throw him out at the first opportunity, our third choice striker, regardless of the price tag. And I do think, for example, one of his best traits is availability. So we know that Jota will get injured, every now and again, unfortunate injuries. And we know that Lucho Diaz is actually needed on occasion on the left as well, rotating with Cody Gakpo. So when you look at it, Darwin Núñez has an important part to play in the same way that Wijnaldum was underappreciated, in that he's just always available as an option. And if Slot wants to build the tactics with someone who can consistently do something, at least he's got that chemistry with Salah. And Salah, has actually said that behind Firmino, Darwin Núñez is his favorite player to play with, for the fact that Salah can play the ball into space in the front line and then run wherever he wants, and off the ball movement of Salah is very important. And Núñez will willingly chase it, whereas Jota, Gakpo, Chiesa, Diaz all want the ball to feet. So it's a slightly different game. So in that regard, even if we sell Núñez at the end of the season, he'll go with everyone's blessings if we win the league. But I think he's grafting, and he's doing a proper job for the team. And you're completely right. We just support him. We support all the lads, right, until the last day.
Definitely. And I just think shifting expectation is also the best thing to do, because you mentioned the price tag, and I feel like so many people are kind of fixated on,
Yeah.
we paid this crazy price, he scored this amount of goals at Benfica, and therefore he has to be this player for us. But I also think you kind of have to, like, you have to shift those expectations. And for me, it's like, I'm not expecting him anymore to be scoring 30 goals a season. I'm not expecting him to score every chance that he gets. But like you said, he will help the team, and he always does give 100%. So we might as well. I mean, we should be supporting him until he potentially goes. But yeah, I think it's about shifting those expectations.
Really, really much so. And I think, like, he's one of those players that maybe the coaches appreciate more than the fans, because I keep linking back to Leicester's title winning season, right? Vardy doesn't score all those goals, and they don't pull off that miracle title win if Shinji Okazaki isn't doing the dirty work behind Jamie Vardy to make it.
Mm,
And he was not a good
mm,
finisher. I've seen Okazaki in the international and for Leicester. He was not a good finisher. You even look at Sheringham, you look at Sutton, and all the players behind the main striker, like Alan Shearer, for example. A lot of them graft and do the dirty work. Sure, Firmino, you can see it clearly in the assist and the
yeah.
silky jogger Benita. You can actually see what he's doing. But some of the other players do a lot of work. Do you remember Soboslai? A lot of fans got on Soboslai's case when he wasn't playing well, wasn't assisting, wasn't shooting on goal. But then when
Yeah.
he's out of the team, we're like, how come we're not dominating the game, and how come our build up is so slow? Because we're missing his physicality and athleticism to press in a high position, which gets us all up the pitch. So they might be some of the kind of coaches' preferences. I'm thinking Grosskreutz at Dortmund, Dirk Kuyt in the Liverpool
Yeah.
Benitez eras, that kind of player, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
good,
completely.
good
Completely.
memories, good memories. I think
Yeah.
in terms of actually from here on out, in terms of what Liverpool need to do, how much of Arne Slot's way of playing do you actually like? And is there any criticism? I know it's hard to criticize the shiny one because he's doing so well, but is there anything from what you've seen you have a slight question or a slight niggle about?
It's yeah. The only thing, yeah, I would say, I think, and I've heard it being mentioned this week, is maybe he seems to trust certain players,
Core group, yeah.
in a really really strong way, and this feels very different to Klopp, for example, where it
Mm,
feels like players that he doesn't quite trust. He seems like, again, I think it's part of what we like about him, his kind of brutal aspect. But
mm,
sometimes I feel like he's so quick to judge. Where Kwanzaa, I mean, there's been reports this week, but I don't even think you need to see the reports. You just need to see kind of how much he plays in, for example. And it just seems like there's certain players where, without really giving them a proper chance, he's kind of already
mm.
decided how much game time they'll get, and he seems to make very little changes, which
Sure.
could hurt us deeper in the season, because some players play a lot of minutes, and the two I'm thinking of are maybe Kwanzaa and Harvey Elliott, because
Yep.
we they're two young players that I think a lot of us Liverpool fans have high hopes for.
Sure.
And with the little amount of game time they're both getting, it feels like come the summer maybe they're going to be like, I want to move on, which is a bit of a shame, because Harvey doesn't come from our academy, but
He
like they've
loves
been
it.
around our
Yeah.
academy and everything. and
Mm.
uh and so it just, yeah, it feels like maybe sometimes he doesn't trust the whole squad, as much as you'd like, is maybe the only thing I'd say,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
I agree. I agree. I've heard that called a lot as well. It's very, very interesting. There's two contradictory things about Slot, which will be interesting to see which one prevails.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, he likes to adjust the tactics on the field with the personnel he's got. You're thinking Gravenberch back to centre back into half back
Mm.
position. He trusts the players and he wants to tweak with the players he's currently got as opposed to bringing someone off the bench. But aligned with that, everyone's fear of burnout, right? You're going to run Gravenberch down to the ground, Soboslai down into ground, that kind of thing as well. His injury record historically at Feyenoord and at Liverpool so far has been really, really good. So I want to see if he continually, let's say stubborn in the players
Yeah.
that he field, not utilizing Harvey Elliott, Jarrell Quansah, too late to put on Bradley, for example, running Trent down to the ground. That can he maintain the fitness record for all these key players and have them performing at a high level enough for us to win the league and hopefully the Champions League? Or will injuries come into play? Or will he change his mindset slightly and bring on the Harvey Elliott earlier, bring on, the Darwin Nunes earlier, the Wataru Endo earlier? Because we know that even with Endo, he is a closer of matches, and we haven't conceded when he's come on, but he is leaving the substitution of Endo quite late in matches as
Yeah.
well. Players are not
Yep.
go to one up, throw Endo on. We're secure,
Yep.
safe houses,
Yep.
player. So he is stubborn in that regard. That's a qualm that I have with him slightly, especially in regards to Connor Bradley and Endo in particular, and maybe even giving
Mm.
Chiesa the odd 5 or 10 minutes.
Yep.
If you're afraid, well, not afraid, but if you think Salah is still one of your gaming conditions between 80 and 90 minutes, why don't you move Salah slightly inside and put on Chiesa or put on
Mm.
Chiesa somewhere else? Because Chiesa has
Mm.
something to offer, right? We've built him
Yep.
up, no
Yep.
preseason. Now he's fit, match fit, looked good in the cup. But I would like to see him be more flexible in bringing on
Mm.
the subs earlier, right?
Yeah. The one thing I'll say though, and I really felt this going. I was lucky enough to go to two games this season,
Yeah.
the Leipzig away and Girona away,
Mm.
and I will say seeing them live, something that really stood out to me that I felt different to when I watched on TV is the intensity at times on the pitch is so kind of almost like I for both games I came away thinking this. It felt like a training session
Mm.
in terms of the ease of the
Sure.
way we went about it. And I think that could be the key in these players not being run down come the end of the
Yes.
season. And all
Yep.
the Feyenoord fans also, I read like on Reddit and different places, they always said his teams play better in the second half of the season.
Mm.
And having gone to both of those games, I'm telling you, like it was unbelievable how it was the opposite of the Klopp era, where the Klopp era was like
Full
chaotic.
throttle.
It was full throttle, and here it's like the opposite, where it's like we got our goal against Leipzig, and it
Mm.
was like we were happy to keep it like just like not press the defenders. It was very much like low tempo.
Yeah.
We stay like this unless Leipzig is really hurting us, and in both games, even when Girona applied pressure on us and Alisson had to make quite a few saves,
Sure.
I remember I was just like, there was such a calmness about our energy where even when they kind of had more chances, and even in the Leipzig game they had some chances, it's like you felt, and again, like being so close to the pitch, I
Mm.
felt kind of the calmness of all the players. And I think that definitely has an impact on the energy levels come the end of the season. So that's kind of what makes me optimistic in how like kind of, even if they might play 90 minutes, I don't think it feels the same in their bodies as like 45 minutes under Jurgen. You know what I mean? Like,
No, you're right. I completely agree with it. I see it as well. So with Jurgen's Gengen pressing, high intensity press, congest the play, you literally have to press and close, which is why that workman-like midfield really won us the ball to facilitate the front three, but they burned out quickly, right? You're thinking Henderson and Fabinho and potentially even Milner and Ox as well. Obviously, Ox's tragic knee injury against Roma. But
mm,
in a slot team, there is intensity, but in moments, in spurts. So when you're in a key area, congested area to close the play, I'm thinking out wide, just in either side of the sixes. When you've got the trap zones, off you go, or you go, win the
yep,
ball, turn it over, and off you go. If there's a counter attack opportunity. Alternatively, he loves to invite the press, likes the opposition to press, which is why he loves the Gravenberch McAllister type of player, because they can laterally bring the ball until the press comes, and then that player's out of position, and they'll work the ball around them, behind them, and work out the space. I think it's almost like an Ariago Saki or kind of Magic Magaya's Hungarian team, whereby they're so confident in the extra pass sideways until the right opportunity opens up to go. and they've honed it in training, week after week at Active Training Academy,
Yeah.
that even when they go behind, and I'm so glad that we've never gone more than one goal behind in the whole season. Literally, one goal, we've come back.
Oh, is
One goal,
that
we've
that's a
come back.
stat?
That's a
Yeah,
stat. We haven't
that's
gone
a stat.
behind more than one goal any match
Wow.
in the entire season.
Wow.
We've always fought back or lost 1-0.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
recently
Yeah.
to Forest and Tottenham. But his way of playing is so trusted by the players, and he probably sold them this concept because he speaks so eloquently and so well
Mm.
as well, that even when we're behind, do what you do, the chances will come. Stay calm and keep doing what you're going to do. And he said the same against Nottingham Forest in the last match. We're dominating the game, we're playing well, the chances will come. It's up to you to get to the right positions and then make it count. Now, we ended the game, as you mentioned, second half coming in strongly. On top, we were favoured to win. Nottingham Forest literally had that one break with Alanga around the back of Trent to square across. But apart from that, it was domination by
Mm.
Liverpool, and we had the shots on target. If we continue in this vein, I can't think of any game the whole season, even against Leipzig, against Leverkusen, against Real Madrid, where we've
Yep.
been dominated. There's been no team that has dominated us. Slot has always found a way to get us back into
I
a
think maybe
game.
just I remember him mentioning, I think Chelsea, that when we
They
we
played
did
well,
beat them
Chelsea, yeah.
obviously at Anfield, but it felt like possession. And yeah, in the Chelsea game, I remember after he was like, "This is the toughest game we've had so
Tough,
far,"
yes,
but
yes.
we did win. So I don't. You could talk about domination, whatever. We got the 3 points, so that's what matters.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes. No, it's a good point. It's a good point for sure. What I kind of mean is Slot has the facility to change the narrative of a match in game to make sure that
completely.
Liverpool will still be presented with the opportunities. I'm thinking back to Klopp against Atalanta. It was almost like we didn't have the ideas to change how that game was playing
Mm.
out. Whereas Slot, even if it's not total control in the odd game, let's say Man United and Chelsea, his tactical tweaks still give us presentable chances or areas on the pitch where you think something might happen, or we might score a goal, or we might end up with additional points here. And that's the confidence I have in him as a tactician. And at the very highest games, let's say the semi-final of a Champions League or the final of the Champions League, I would back him as a tactician
Mm.
to give us a good opportunity to win. That's the kind of feeling I get from him. Isn't that so
Mm.
exciting?
It's so no, you're getting me too excited now for the second half of the season. But what I love too, like just to add on top of that, because I feel like you're so spot on about the tactical side. I also remember, I don't know if you saw the I mean, you must have seen it, but the interview he did with Sander Westerveld, and that
Yes,
was on
yeah,
the Liverpool channel. There's a
yeah.
part that I really really loved, and I think it shows kind of how he's multifaceted. Where at some point he talked about kind of his adjustment when he became manager, and he said something like, my main role as a manager is, or as a coach I guess, is making sure that every single day when they come to training, they're fully energized and
Yeah,
excited about what's going on. And
good
what I
point.
loved about that is, I feel like he's, like you said, so clever tactically, but he also knows that the mental side of the game and getting the most out of like the motivational side of them is at the core of it the most important. And I just think that's so exciting because he has that man management, it seems,
Yes,
but at
yeah.
the same time he's tactically like really really intelligent, so he seems like the real deal. He seems like the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. He is the shiny one for sure. Even in the media and opposition fans, they're loving our manager, our bold manager. They're not calling him a bold fraud or anything. He is literally, everyone like, oh, I hate to say it, but Slot's quality. He's a cool guy. He's a cool lad. Even hear Roy Keane say, that's a cool guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Arnold Slot. And I think there's many areas in his career that actually help him to do what he needs to do in terms of translate his ideas and communicate in a way that players understand. Like, it's no surprise to me that Luis Diaz is scoring more this season for the fact that Arne Slot was a number 10. He was a playmaker,
Mm,
reliant on giving the right kind of balls for the striker, putting the striker in a position to convert the chances. Now, I hope this rubs off on Darwin Nunes as well, but
yeah.
just taking the Luis Diaz situation for now,
Yeah.
under Klopp, he had to start so wide on the left that he had to beat equivalent of two and a half men before he gets a further away shot towards goal from outside the periphery of the goal. Whereas from what I've seen this particular season, he hardly ever does that shot anymore. Slot works Luis Diaz into a position until he's within the goalposts. And then within the goalposts, that is the only position where Luis Diaz is taking a shot this season, more or less, which is why he's converting a lot more, because they're more presentable chances, more convertible chances. And he's more willing to allow the midfield, as Curtis Jones mentioned, to build up the play until the ball can get into a position for the forward to have a more
Mm,
favourable conversion shot. And I've always thought that Mo Salah as well is more of a quantity shooter than a quality shooter, right? In
Yep.
terms of clinical nature. And I guess that can be leveled at Nunez and Salah and other people, that they need a lot of shots to score. I don't think we've had really, really clinical strikers historically, except for maybe Diogo Jota,
Mm.
Robbie Fowler,
Yep.
maybe even looking at Daniel Sturridge, because Suarez still actually needed quite a lot of shots on before he actually converted the goals and accepted that hot patch. So to find that real clinical striker, I think sometimes is very difficult, because Haaland's a clinical striker, but he offers nothing to build up. He wouldn't really suit the
Mm.
Liverpool way, right? So
Yeah. No, you're spot on. But with Diogo Jota, like I don't know if you saw the news. Slot unfortunately said that
yeah,
he
not
picked
in
up a
training.
knock, so he's not going to be able to start in the game against Brentford. But yeah, like the only thing with Salah is I feel like he does need a lot of chances, but he is like I feel like he's quite clinical in the moments where it matters most.
Clutch.
And
Yeah,
yeah, like the clutch aspect, or when there's the pressure, he seems to surmount to that pressure, and he loves it. And that's what makes him. That's why I think we all say like whatever he wants, he deserves it, because
yeah.
finding a player like that who, when all the kind of pressure is on his shoulders, for you to rise and kind of take the weight on your shoulders, that's really rare to come by.
Agreed.
And
There's certain qualities, intangible qualities. Van Dijk makes other players play better. When you have Van Dijk behind you, you feel confident, you feel energized, you feel safe. When you have Salah on the pitch, whether it's first minute or 90th minute, he can make something happen. You have an outlet. If you don't feel up to it, you get the ball to him in a position and he will make something happen, which is why I think the aura of Van Dijk and Salah put them above Trent in the priority pecking order, for the fact that when you look at the core of Liverpool, you're always going to say Alisson Becker, Virgil van Dijk, Mo Salah, at the time, Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino as well. But in effect, the other players in midfield, even Robertson and Alexander Arnold, to an extent, facilitated, built around that core. So them two are definitely the ones to kind of prioritize. They add the and consistency and performance. Van Dijk
mm,
plays every game, never breaks a sweat. Salah plays every game, never injured. You can't replace that. Leroy Sané is good, but he's injured a lot, right? You got other quantity as well, but they won't give you the same amount of goals season upon season as Salah. So I think you're right. They are worth the money. But speaking of money, I remember a point you made earlier about Manchester City, the 115 financial penalties, right? They've signed Haaland to a 9.5 year deal today. They're buying
crazy.
Omar Mamouche. They're looking at Cambiasso, and they're buying that center. Is it Ray? Something Ray from
The
Palmeiras as well.
Yeah,
Do
the
you
young
think
Brazilian center back. Yeah.
do you think it's because they're thinking a transfer ban is incoming, get them in before a transfer ban, or that they're going to be hit with penalties or all that kind of thing? So get them all in before the decision is made.
The- Honestly, I'm more leaning towards the side of they're gonna get away with it, or they're
Yeah.
gonna they're gonna find a solution, because I I I can't imagine that the likes of Haaland, these Marmoush that they're bringing in, that they don't have some kind of clause in their contracts that allows them to move if they get it moved down a division, or something like a big penalty happens with the charges. So my concern is more so like if they are willing to sign that many players, and especially Erling Haaland signing like a 10-year deal. It's crazy. He's going to be the highest paid player in the Premier League as well. It's
Yeah.
I worry that it's more of a behind the scenes. They think they're gonna
Right.
be okay,
Yep.
because you know what I mean? Otherwise, I really do think they would be in a clause in the contract where it's
Yeah.
like, if
That's
we
the
get
thing.
relegated, you sell me for that certain price, which obviously would be a much lower price, because then they would be in an emergency kind of scenario, and that would just be really bad financial decisions for the club. So like I do think if they were worried, surely they would wait the decision. I don't know.
In an
Like
alternate timeline, they get relegated to Championship or get relegated even beyond that, right? And they retain the core of their team. They're going to be winning like 15-0 every single. They're going to break all goal scoring
But can
records
they
of
do
all time.
that? That's the thing though. Now it seems like the financial fair play seems strict actually now. And what I wonder is if they get dropped down to the championship, like the revenue is gonna drop so significantly down, that how could they actually, with the financial fair play, how could they keep those those contracts? Like Holland's gonna be on
It,
500K a week.
I think it's based, isn't it based on the last financial or period of financial reporting over duration? So their first few seasons on relegation would have the
Okay.
buffer of the revenue that they earned during the Premier League. So as long as they get promoted, they would still fall in line with that, from my understanding. But might be a bit iffy. They will have to sell some people, but I don't think they get hit straight away
Okay.
with the revenue against financial fair play of the championship season. That will come if they
Okay.
stay in the championship. So they might
Ah,
have
okay.
a little bit of room to wiggle out of that. But if they did facing a Manchester City in the championship, literally that is they're going to get like straight promotion back to back anyway, right? With
I
whatever
mean,
they retain in that
and
lineup.
and Erling Haaland, who loves to break records, he's gonna love
Yeah,
like scoring 90 in a season or something.
he's going to have some
But
Pele.
do you personally like where are you leaning towards? Like obviously we don't know all the details, but what do you think's gonna happen?
Yeah, I feel they will at least get transfer window bans, which is why they are looking to
Okay.
sign players here and now, and on the caveat that they get points deductions, which might launch them into the championship. I think they would have backed themselves because they're never expecting to be relegated, so I don't think they'll have relegation release clauses and wage deductions. So they will probably bank on having to sell players in and around the team to keep afloat, but keeping the core of the team, expecting that they got promoted, one season out, tough cookies, but look, you're being paid 500k, 400k, 300k a week, suck it up for 1 year out of the Champions League, and up we go again, to compete. So it's yeah, I do think whether they get relegated or not is in the balance, but I think they will at least get transfer window bans, which is why they've
Okay.
accelerated those plans to buy all those players.
Yeah, but the only thing with that, like I agree, but at the same time, they have so many charges that to me, it's
Yeah,
either like that's why I think it's such a difficult decision for the
it
Premier
is.
League because it's like unprecedented. So to me, it's
Mm,
like either they find them guilty of all these charges and it's like a massive um penalty, not like a
true.
few transfer window bans, because you saw with Everton Forest, like they had one charge pretty much, and you
Yeah,
saw what happened. This is like over
115.
100. They might even be more than 115. So to
Yeah,
me, my worry is like the penalty would be so significant that it would tarnish the image of the Premier League in such a significant way, because it's
sure.
City have been the face of the Premier League for so many years that my worry, and usually I'm hopeful, like I am positive. My worry is they're thinking more about the brand of the Premier League and
Yeah, political side.
City,
Yeah,
and that will help City because they know that it's almost like a win-win situation where they can kind of get away with this and say, look, now we are strict with financial fair play. Yes, in the past, like we learned our lesson and we weren't careful enough with kind of the spending and what was going on, the minor details. But look, now Newcastle came in, state ownership. We didn't let them do anything. Or little, like you see how careful Newcastle are.
yeah.
And that's kind of my concern. It's like they'll say something like yeah, the past we don't know about, but now like we're we're not going to revisit, but the present we are being very strict.
It's very interesting for sure because first of all they'll set a precedence for
Yep.
future occurrences. Secondly, let's see if they have a spine or not because Man City's lawyers are all beefed up to with the money and to prolong the case to prolong their stay in the Premier League, and obviously the repercussions on what happens to those titles that Manchester City won, and backtracking, backdating, very very complex as you said for sure. And speaking of complex, now this is from myself to yourself. You are my senpai in Japanese in terms of YouTube content creation. You know a lot more than me on the platform. I've got a few specific questions. So you predominantly do a lot of quality shorts content, especially on Instagram and on YouTube as well, but you do have the occasional long form content. Do you think there is any actual impact into like performances of your next videos if you do cross between shorts and longs, shorts and longs, or what were you found in that mixture?
Yeah, definitely. Like I was lucky enough to meet, I don't know if you know the YouTuber John Nellis,
Heard of him, yeah.
but yeah, like they know so much more about YouTube than me, so I often like ask them and pick their brains about kind of the behind the scenes what goes on,
Sure.
and it really does seem like there is a significant um difference between the two, and that's one of the reasons why, like you said, I haven't been doing much longer form,
Mm,
because it's one of them where a lot of the community discovered the channel through shorter form content, which does
sure.
allow you to have a bigger reach, but it means a lot of those people are just used to watching you on short form and they
Yeah.
won't get fed
Mm,
your longer form videos in the same way. So I think you really have to treat your longer form and shorter form completely differently. Where I see that if it's not like a high production longer form video,
Mm.
it's not like all the people that are subscribed are going to be fed that video. It really needs to be a high quality video that is basically separate to the short form, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely agreed. And in terms of where you go from now, so obviously you've built up a massive kind of following, 200,000 subscribers plus, I believe. And in terms of how do you go to the next level, have you got any kind of exciting projects or differentiating and branching, or is it about sustaining the current quality and current level of production?
No, yeah, the dream is to be able to do more consistent longer form, but one of the reasons I think I haven't done it is because as of right now, I feel like there is longer form video being put out by other Liverpool channels that's very much like quick reaction based, which is like player
Mm.
ratings, which is like immediate match reaction, things that are just so in the moment, but then a few days later it becomes less kind of
Half
relevant.
life.
So
Yeah.
I think the my dream, and this also would depend a lot on trying to find help because I suck at the editing part of it, but like my dream would be to be able to focus on more timeless content
Evergreen. Yeah. Yeah.
that evergreen, exactly, because first off, I just enjoy it less kind of putting a lot of work for a longer form video that is irrelevant a week later. And also it's also just you have to look at what other fan channels are doing,
Mm.
and everyone is kind of doing that. So I think the my dream for the future is trying to tell stories in longer form for sure. That's more, yeah, timeless. That's more something that you would still be interested in 3 months time, because then you're more motivated, I think, also to really put work into it, you could differentiate yourself, and that's what I would say. Often when people ask about, and I like I said, I'm definitely not a specialist or anything like that, but sometimes people ask for advice, and I often say, like, one, and you're an example where I see your passion is unbelievable, but make sure that
Appreciate
whatever kind of you create your content around, that it's something you're so passionate about, where you're not bored to make content around that thing 3 months later. Like, you have to
it.
kind of have a long-term vision for it, because a channel isn't going to grow crazily in 6 months. It's very rare, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
then the other advice I always give is kind of look at, I don't want to call it competition, because I think we should be friends between fan
Growth
channels, but
drives growth.
more just look at what's out there, and you simply have to do things differently, especially to channels that have been around much longer than you. And I remember when I looked, I was like, the Redman TV, Anfield Rap, uh, Anfield Agenda, for example. Those are three of maybe the biggest.
Mm.
When I looked at them, like, I was kind of like, the reason why I did do short form, and I was like, all of them are putting out tons of content. They're doing it full time, and I was like, how could I make my way into this kind of world, I guess you could say,
Find the gap.
in
Yeah.
find a gap. And I was like, none of them are really putting in proper effort in shorter form, and that's when I decided to kind of go all out, and I've kind of just become more specialized in the shorter form. But like you said, I really do have the desire to do something longer, because it's such a short connection, and there's so much more that could be said. But I think the reason why I haven't is, like I told you, I don't want to end up kind of doing what the other people are doing,
Yeah.
because like, they've been doing it for longer, but also just I know I would get bored of it, and I really wouldn't enjoy it, I don't think, you
Yeah,
know.
you need passion, you need drive, you need motivation to put out the best quality content you can, something that inspires not just you, but also the people who are going to watch it at the end. So yeah, I completely
But you see,
understand that.
with your channel too, like, when I fell upon your channel, I was like, what I really loved is, I really think you have that difference between the others, where you're much more, I would say, in depth, in
Mm,
terms of
appreciate it.
tactically, in terms of going into the details. Like, I'm really impressed with that side of your
Very kind.
your intelligence. But then also, you just have such a different energy. You obviously have the Liverpool fan in Japan, like, you have the perspective of knowing the British culture well in Japan,
Yeah.
and so, like, I think you're gonna, I mean, you're already smashing it, but you're only gonna keep growing, because I really do see you as being very different. Like, those three channels I mentioned, I think you're very, very different. And that's, I think, the way to be. It's like, how can you think about just being yourself? Because, like, I think it's so easy to kind of get into the flow of looking
Mm,
at what's most successful and being like, I need to kind of copy
to
that because
replicate.
that's what's
Yeah. Mm,
working. But I think that then you get into kind of a dark hole, because that's not going to work, because, again, they've been around longer. They do it full time, and so they're gonna it's gonna be easier to kind of put things out faster, and all that. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, I really, really appreciate it, Leo. Thank you for the kind words. I could almost do like an hour of just hearing compliments and being put in the spotlight. Love it. No,
You
that's
deserve
very,
it.
very, very kind of you. No, I agree. I agree because already they have an established fan base. They are well known for anyone who enjoys that kind of content. They're going to be the go-to place anyway, right? So rather than
Yep.
try to replicate and do an inferior version, you've just got to kind of present what you want to tell the people, what you want to share, your specialist knowledge. What are you passionate or good at doing as well? And I feel you have the same. You've captured the kind of shorts market, the quick information in a very positive light. Current, modern, trendy, up to date. I know you like your kits and shirts as well. I love the scarf on
Yeah.
Sarge. It's a very very
Yeah.
Asian Japanese look as well. Just need a nice little thin overcoat
I
and
have an Endo shirt too, you know. I
then.
got an Endo shirt for with Japan. Endo
Excellent,
Japan
excellent.
shirt.
Endo is hugely, hugely popular in Japan. I'm sure you're aware of his kind of vlogs, and he does
Yeah.
monthly newsletters and talks to the fans. But it's surprisingly, he's not about football. He talks to the fans about parenting, about raising children, about
What?
children's habits, and around how he can
No.
raise his kids better. So he's very embedded in like forums and communities for like family stuff, away from football. So it's really, really interesting to see.
But you know a video of yours that I saw too, and again you talk about differentiating. I loved when you talked about kind of your fitness journey
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
that type of video too, because like you know we're talking about those other three channels for example, but I
Mm,
think that just shows how you're doing your thing, and it's like that's something that you want to share with other people. And I know when I saw it I loved it because I was just like I was just like no one else is kind of doing this where like obviously you have kind of the specialty is Liverpool, but who says that you can't branch out? Who says that you have to just talk about the next game and just talk about again the current events? Why can't you kind of go in a different way too? So
Yeah, no, agreed, agreed. I think one of the perspectives I got told, I can't remember who told me, is one of the fans on the Discord forum, but they see a lot of the football content creators as kind of like football fans who make content, whereas I'm more like a YouTuber who does football content, if that kind of
yeah,
makes sense. So
yeah,
I just talk about myself, my personality, the things I like, and kind of
yeah,
weave it and incorporate it in. It's kind of like a half football, half vlog, day in the life kind of
yeah.
myself, and I
That's
find it more
brilliant.
fun that way. You're right, just be
Yeah,
authentic, be yourself, and it kind of shows through, right? You can see your enthusiasm, your passion, you're smiling when you're so happy and chuffed. You don't need to hide it. You just present it. You don't need to be a
yeah.
persona on screen. You just do what you feel, vibe with it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, completely. And that's just like that's the advice I give because I like I said, if you're just gonna try to copy others, I don't even think it's gonna be successful. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So that is a beautiful thing too about YouTube is I think more and more as well. Like for example, live form, like I love to do live streams as well because it's those spontaneous moments. I think more and more people are gonna want like the real thing. They're not gonna want I think, for example, having green screens and having all of this tech and all this stuff, like I actually think we're going to move further and further away from that because with AI being more and more,
mm,
advanced, I think you'll easily be able to kind of replace like for example, I used to do predicted lineups every single match week and there it was quite popular, but recently I decided to stop it and I think one of the reasons was like I almost felt like a robot at some point where it was like every match day predicted team and like a lot of people now are like Leo bring it back, but
mm,
I think it makes this like bigger point where it's like an AI machine can easily like
mm.
will be able to easily replace this like robotic thing where it's like here's the
Format,
predicted
yeah.
team, here's how we set up with like the graphics will probably look 10 times better because the technology will be there. I think what people will want is like you go on a live stream and you're like, I'm freaking struggling with my mental health today. Like I'm having difficulties. And I just want you guys to know, like, I didn't feel like recording
Mm,
today, but I did because you guys mean a lot to me. Just stuff like
yeah.
that, where it's like it's real and I'm just excited because I actually think even with all this technology that's gonna come, it's just gonna like the human core aspect
Yeah.
is gonna be what people want more and more, you
They
know?
can they can relate to it. It's kind of the empathy, the connection. You can really relate to what the person is saying because everyone's lives, no matter how celebrities like to portray it, it's not all bubbly. There are
No.
hard days, there are tough days, but you're completely right. Even when ill, right, you get the excitement. You see your fans comment, the compliments, they agree with your thing, or even a discussion. There might be a slight disagreement, but it's all constructive as long as it's good. We're all Liverpool supporters at the end of the day, right? And when the
Exactly.
team scores, everyone's celebrating, G up, and so happy in the fan base. And that's the kind of message I'll try to say over social media as well. No matter how much you might dislike a player for whatever reason, when they score, when they perform well, we're all happy. We're all happy when Liverpool wins, right? So why don't you just do the flip side? Encourage him, motivate him, raise his
Yeah.
morale. Maybe he will perform better. And in return, if he does well, then you're going to be happy because you've probably won the game. So that's the kind of message, isn't
Completely.
it?
Not completely. And I'm just shocked, honestly. Like the energy around this week. I don't know where you kind of look most for Liverpool in like discussions and stuff. It sounds like you go on Reddit a bit, but
Reddit,
I
yeah, BBC,
Reddit.
Sky Sports, the kind of
So
forums as well.
you
Yeah.
don't go on Twitter too much?
I
Or
do, I
for
do, but I don't
news?
get involved in the comments. I don't really look
Okay.
at the
Yeah.
replies, endless replies, because as
Yeah.
you know, it gets toxic and kind of
Yeah.
drowns you out, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's I was just gonna say, like this week, for example, if you're and for me, it's not less. I look at the comments,
Mm.
just people I follow on Twitter and in other
Okay.
places. It's just felt like it's almost like in the position of united almost with the
Oh
energy.
yeah, yeah.
And sometimes I'm just like, guys, like take a
Surprise.
step back, look
Mm,
where we are. Yes, we want to do better, but you have to believe that we will. Like you
yeah.
can't look at the our entire season and think the United and Spurs games is how we've been all season. Like you have to actually look at what we've achieved so far, and that has to give us belief. Like it's
Absolutely. You're right. You're right. It's all about perspective, isn't it? Like it really has a lot of recency bias and scared of the what if and oh my god, we've choked from here before and at Christmas time we've lost the lead before, but they're not looking at the real situation right now, what's in front of you. We probably do have the strongest squad, right? 1 to 15, even maybe 1 to 20 at the moment, and especially in light of injuries to the opposition as well. Now
mm,
people want to say we've lost points against Newcastle, we've lost points against United, we lost against Tottenham in the cup. We're on a downward trend, downward form. It's only going to go downhill from where's the precedence that's going to go downhill under Arne Slot with the weapons at his disposal and the performances you mentioned, right? The
yeah,
performances, regardless of result, will get you points more often than not in key matches. Nottingham Forest had 2 chances, and you wouldn't call them clear-cut chances. It was a fantastic finish by Chris Wood, low,
yeah,
hard, left-footed, going away from goal into the side net. Right?
one time,
If we scored that, we would have been well chuffed with that goal.
yeah, yeah,
Similarly, as well, right? Alisson Becker letting in a shot from Amad Diallo or whoever. Um, Sure, Alisson Becker hasn't kept clean sheets and saved things, but the cause for Keller to come in. Do you remember Kelleher Newcastle match? Didn't catch a cross and they scored back post last seconds. People were
exactly.
over him, and now they're
It's
over on Alisson. It's crazy, isn't it?
it's so reactionary, and
Yeah.
that's why, like, I just think again, it's like I think it's also part of the reason why people are reactionary is it gets you more engagement. It does,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I mean?
Controversy
So
creates cash.
exactly. So I think definitely most people do that, but again, I think that's another great opportunity where so I look at that sometimes and I'm like, sure, in the short term, it might
Mm,
not. It might get less views to not put out a video where it's like FSG are the worst. We need to get them out. All this stuff, but think more like if somebody does see or follow upon your channel, follow upon your energy,
yeah.
and they see that you're kind of you have that perspective, they might be like, oh, it's nice for a change, like something a
Mm.
bit different.
You
So
get those comments. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think you have to kind of trust your gut, and like definitely what I've seen from your channel, like I said, the compliments, but I really do see something that's very different and special. So keep going. And I had two little short questions for you as well,
Go for it.
because
Yeah,
it's
please do.
felt like you've thrown the questions, but I was wondering for your like what your a kind of what your goal with your channel is one day, or your community. What's like your kind of your biggest dream? And
Absolutely.
then the
Mm.
other question I had, which might be a little related, but if you could have one player or manager onto your channel one day to do like a 1 hour interview, who would be your dream?
Excellent. No, first and foremost, fantastic questions. I would like just kind of awareness, kind of recognition and awareness that obviously in the kind of content creation space, you get a lot of people just throwing out names for transfers and odd matches and reactionary content as you mentioned. But I
Yeah.
would like to be able to have those more kind of high level discussions with maybe a lot more of the content creators, But obviously that
Mm.
comes with recognition, growing the channel, being enticing for them to come on the show so that we can have a proper discussion around why do you think, Liverpool, are in a position here. Why do you think
Yeah.
Chelsea are dropping or Man United apart from get Eric Ten Hag out, bold forward, all that kind of
Yeah.
things?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can elevate the
Yeah.
baseline level of like intelligent conversation in football as a whole. That would be the kind of
Mm.
dream for
Love
me
that.
for the content channel especially. But in Miyazaki Japan, another kind of dream, and I've told some of the other guests this as well, is I kind of want to give back to Japan for allowing us to live a comfortable life, being very happy, acclimatized, the kids are happy. So I want to build a park, a kind of memorial park in my name in Miyazaki
Ooh.
City to say like, thank you. My life here is fantastic. I want to give something back to the new generations that are growing up, and also
Where
like
would
a
the
kind
park
of
be? Where would
uh,
the park be?
somewhere in the local vicinity to where I live, kind of central Miyazaki somewhere, because there's lots of mountains and fields
Okay.
which you can convert into recreational play areas. But alongside that, I'd
Oh.
also like to make a Miyazaki British afternoon cafe. So you
Oh
can
my
have
god.
your
I love
sausage
it.
rolls, you can have your Sunday roasts, you can have fine British tea, Fortnum and Mason, because an element of British class would be really nice.
I
And
love
then
it.
alongside that as well, I've got many dreams, but
Yeah.
a real life kind of school, because you go to school, you get your math, science, and everything, but you don't
Yep.
learn about finance, you don't learn about tax, you don't even learn properly about like sex education
Mm.
or starting a business, like real life lessons. So kids after school can go here after you've done your homework and behaved and eaten a healthy snack or whatever, get real education to help you with life. So
Mm.
there's some of the dreams, but I'm going on a little bit here. They're just some of the dreams in
Nah, I love it.
and then the other one is the manager that I would like to meet. My favorite manager of all time is a Liverpool manager. I would love to talk to Rafa Benitez because
Mm.
the way that he thinks and the tactical tweaks, remember that he never had the luxury of the transfer budget to compete, really restrained by financial restrictions, but always was competitive, always could fight toe to toe with Jose Mourinho's Chelsea, keep it compact.
Yeah.
Moments like Lucho Garcia, the discussion between like Alonso to Barry, which I kind of understand to some extent as well. But certain decisions that he made that he can see, I want a first-hand explanations for example, when you're losing 3-0 against AC Milan, the first instinct then Cisse, more attacking flair. We need a goal back, right? But the first substitution is Haman to win the ball back, to isolate Kaká to get us on the front foot, Gerard to pseudo right back role, and he plays chess. I'm a big chess player myself,
Oh,
so
you
I
are?
love
Oh,
over a
okay.
game of chess to talk to
Mm.
Benitez.
And then what about a player?
Yeah, for players,
Mohamed Salah,
very
because he loves to play chess too?
yeah, I know Salah loves to play chess, but he's so competitive, right? Super,
Oh
super
my.
competitive player, and it's good to be that way. My favorite Liverpool player is Xabi Alonso, and obviously he's a coach as well, a Leverkusen coach, and to get he's played under some of the best managers: Mourinho, Benitez,
Yep.
Ancelotti, Guardiola, some of the
Crazy.
Spanish managers as well, Del Bosque, everyone. So I would love to pick Xabi Alonso's brain throughout his playing career, how he thinks, the way he plays on a pitch, right? The reason why he's my favorite player is because I think he sees the game differently and his
Mm.
instinct of what to do with the ball is different than every other player, right? Controlling the
Mm.
tempo, controlling the narrative of the game, putting the ball into a new place, but sometimes holding the ball for the extra moment. I think he'd be really interesting to talk to. Who would you like to talk to in terms of manager and player?
I think I'm less tactical than you. I'm more like, I think what fascinates me most is more the mental side of the game.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think manager, obviously Jurgen, just
Mm,
because like also just that energy about him and more life. Like honestly, I would love to do I think my biggest dream would be an interview with Klopp where we don't really talk about football actually, where it's more like about life, because I feel like in moments where he's made things like when he's had comments that are kind of bigger than life, which yes are about football because that's his specialty and his biggest passion, but that go beyond just football. That's when I've had like
mm.
goosebumps and I've been like, wow, like I'm really moved by him, and I think that's why we love him so much. Is
Yeah.
it felt way more than just a football manager.
Oh,
He
oh
had
yeah,
that
yeah.
presence in our life,
Yeah.
but then in terms of a player, it's tough to say, but maybe honestly, maybe Mohamed Salah, because again, like the mental side of the game is one that I don't think gets talked about that much, and I would love to hear in real detail kind of the way Mo goes about his, like one of the things I love the most before games, you see them almost come before they come out onto the pitch, and they're just in the tunnel, and the amount of times you see Salah like totally different to all the players, where he's just like this, like I see him like on the floor sometimes where he's just like that, like this, and he's
Yeah.
definitely meditating. You know what I mean? He's meditating, and he's spoken about the importance of that. But yeah, I think probably Mo for that reason.
Very, very good call. He's an inspiration, a legend. He's still, I think, slightly underloved considering his contributions to Liverpool and the happiness he's given fans worldwide. He really should be right up there. He's done nothing but be loyal and perform season after season. He's a great shout to talk to. He plays chess as well. He's well spoken.
Yeah.
He's always smiley and positive as well. That's a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, my man, for joining me,
No,
giving me the
thank
time.
you.
It's been an absolute honor to have you on. Hopefully, you
you.
enjoyed the session as well.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Thank you
And
for
we got to
having
do
me
it
on.
again sometime.
Absolutely.
Cool. Any final message to all the fans? I know a lot of my fans are fans of your channel as well. Any message to those guys?
No, I would just say like it's been amazing to come on, and for us to share even though it's through a screen, like I can feel your energy, and yeah, just like what you said about like your dream kind of about having more level-headed discussions. I think like I think that's what it should be all about. So I think to just say like let's keep having those more like perspective level conversations, and let's freaking appreciate the moment, because what a time to be alive. You know what I mean? Like we're going through a bit of a spell right now, but like we're still top of the Premier League, we're top of the Champions League. Like I believe we'll beat Spurs in the second leg. We're in the FA Cup. Like there's so many reasons to be excited, and I think we should lean into that energy more than the energy of like anxiety, because like I don't know how long this is. We never know how long good times last. So let's enjoy every second.
Well said. Up the Reds, up the shiny one. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to
Yes,
Leo's
guys.
goals. I'm sure you're
Oh no, I was gonna
subscribed
say to you, but yeah.
Quality, my man. Thank you so much. And until next time, Janet means peace.
Ciao, guys.
See you guys there. Ciao.
Ciao, guys.
The best way to support the channel is through YouTube membership. Becoming a member will give you exclusive access to my tactical masterclass videos, as well as translations and analysis on Endo's book Duel, his vlogs, and my uncensored thoughts on other content creators. Each new member brings me closer to buying new Liverpool kits for Mushroom Boy Eito and Triple Me Mia as they grow up. The Wonder Kid tier gives you priority reply to your comments, as I will see the Endo emoji next to your name, as well as invites to live meet and greets in the future, member-only polls for video ideas, and custom emojis in chat for just under £3, cheaper than a Mackie D's triple cheese brunch, and more fulfilling too. In the LFIJ All-Stars tier, you get early access to videos, member shoutouts in videos, Japanese snacks, and a custom commissioned Christmas card with my handwritten personal message to you for under £9. And in the Emperor Endo tier, me love you long time. Jump on for a 15-minute chat whenever suits every month, and let's collab on Liverpool. Up the Reds! All members get exclusive access to the LFIJ lounge on Discord for that juicy and spicy banter in private, an exclusive member number and nickname that will go on your commission goodie. Yours to keep forever. So what are you waiting for? Join the membership and be part of the best community worldwide.